Maki vs Yuki is one of those fights that just sparked about recently. Yuki is a special grade sorcerer who went up against Kenjaku, and Maki is a fighter who recently underwent a heavily restriction boost, which made her equal to Toji. I ran a poll asking who you guys thought would win the fight, and it was overwhelmingly in Yuki's favor as she got about 72% of the votes. There is a reason that most of you voted for Yuki, and honestly, y'all are all correct. There are plenty of reasons that I will get into today that explain why Maki vs Yuki is not close. First, I want to say if you enjoy JJK content, then I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel, as I post videos every couple days on different topics you guys recommend me and a few I come up with on my own. Now let's get into the video. So getting into the versus battle, we should first start off with Maki's fighting style and abilities. First, we can start off with her fight against the Zenin family. Her father Ogi left her to die in the training grounds, and after her sister Mai died, she underwent a change. After seeing Maki again for the first time, Ogi says, "I try so hard, but my body can't forget this fear." And as Maki and Ogi first start the battle, she blitzes him so hard that she just cuts his head off before he can even begin to fight. The family underestimated Maki so much that after hearing that she killed Ogi, they thought that she must have killed him while he was asleep or on the toilet. They send the Kukuru unit after Maki and they surround her in a room. Maki quickly cuts one of their hands off and she actually begins to blitz all of them and finish them off. A member of the Hei expected the Kukuru unit to finish off Maki, so when he goes in the room to check on how they're doing, he is surprised to see Maki standing alive in the center of the room, surrounded by dead bodies. And as Maki begins to fight with the Hei, Ranta says, "The Zenin clan exists because of Master Toji's whim. As you can see, Maki has become just like him. Right here, right now, we must kill her." Now, of course, they aren't able to kill her, she runs through the rest of them pretty quickly. Boruto is basically saying here that the Zenin clan exists because Toji didn't decide to just come kill them all. He says Maki has become like Toji because the new heavenly restriction she has. Before, she had the same amount of curse energy as a normal person, but now she has 0. And this brought about a big physical boost. And this brings us to the most important fight of this moment, which is Maki versus Naoya. The fight starts off pretty one-sided as Naoya uses projection sorcery to catch Maki a couple times, just slamming her around. The entire time he's beating her up, he keeps saying that she is not Toji, which is, we already knew that, but Naoya just has this sort of weird thing where he believes that he's the one who's supposed to stand with Gojo and Toji. So throughout this fight with Maki, he just keeps trying to say, "You are not Toji." He even says, "The sin of the insignificant is the ignorance of strength. No one understood Toji except possibly for Satoru. It is not you." And we see him zip around with projection sorcery, go and pick Maki up by her ankle and throw her against a rock. And he says the one who stands with them is me. Maki even says this is bad, and we actually get an explanation for how projection sorcery works. Projection sorcery does not allow movement in ways that egregiously ignore the laws of physics and trajectories. Furthermore, there is an upper limit to the body's acceleration at the time of activating the curse technique. However, maintaining the curse technique allows speed to continuously build. And Naoya says, "I won't stop. I won't make the same mistake as before." Basically, he was saying in the fight with Choso, he basically stopped after he saw a bunch of blood being spilled everywhere. But Naoya realizes that he shouldn't have stopped. He should have just, kept building up speed so he can run through Choso. And he says that he won't make that same mistake here. And he says this strength is weight and speed. "I will punch through her at top speed." And we see Maki let her arms out and she says that she will embrace Naoya as she comes towards him. And this is where it says, in exchange for Mai's life, Maki had gained a body of steel that had broken away from curse energy. But she suffered injuries and lost blood fighting Ogi, and then fought against the Hei. So she knew she was at a disadvantage in a protracted fight against Naoya, who had already surpassed subsonic speed. And Naoya says a head-on collision, huh? So instead of going directly into Maki, he just slaps the side of her arm and then decides to zip around her. And it says, when the palm of a combatant activating projection sorcery touches an opponent, that opponent must also move at 24 frames per second. Failure means 1 second of freezing. Failure means 1 second. Meanwhile, Naoya is still moving at top speed. And Naoya says, "You are planning to receive the brunt of my attack and stop me from moving even if it broke your ribs. But I won't fall for such an obvious bait. You really are an imposter." But right as Naoya gets up on Maki, she just turns around and says, 24 times right. "You and Naobito aren't just fast, something felt strange. You make 24 movements per second. With this body, I can finally see that. And we see Naoya try to say you imposter, but it doesn't matter. Maki just punches him so hard into the ground that she wins the fight in one punch. The most important parts about Maki's strength and character actually comes later when she fights Naoya for the second time after he comes back as a curse. So we should get into those fights to fully understand how Maki is currently. You see, when Naoya comes back as a cursed spirit, he is actually able to move so fast that he actually runs directly through Maki, pushing her into the ground. And it says that Naoya's speed had reached Mach 3, and he even says to himself, "No way, and to think you beat me once." This is just like the start of the fight though. This is before Maki levels up. But this Maki, the same one that beat Naoya in the past, is nowhere near as strong as Naoya when he comes back as a curse. He needed to undergo some sort of change, which we see happen very soon. There's something important to note as Maki begins to recover from this beatdown she just took. She tells Kamo to just give her 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, she can heal her injuries. So she tells Kamo to just distract Naoya for about 5 minutes so she can heal. It is sort of, confusing how that works because we don't really get like an in-depth explanation for how she can just heal her wounds in 5 minutes. But it's just important to note that she can heal her wounds if she has 5 minutes. And that's 5 minutes for just the wounds she just took against Naoya. I would assume that if the wounds were of lesser damage, then it would take less time. And if the wounds were more deep and hurt more, then of course, they would take more time to heal from. As Maki begins to engage with Naoya again, Daido actually pulls up, and Daido is a swordsman from the past. Maki asks Daido if he is able to see Naoya, but Daido says, "No, I can't see him, but if I see everything else, then it is the same as if I am seeing him." And Maki says, "What was that? My attacks didn't do that. If I see everything else, what is it that I am not seeing? What is the difference between me and that guy?" Maki is basically wondering how it is that Daido can see Naoya without actually seeing Naoya. And Maki says that whatever it is that Daido has, she doesn't have. She wonders what the difference between her and Toji is because Toji has what she is missing. And that is when the sumo guy comes around the corner and asks her to play sumo. When Maki goes into the sumo domain, she tells Kamo she's been overthinking, so she needs to blow off some steam. And the sumo guy asks Maki, "Why can't you focus? What's on your mind?" And this is where we learn Maki doesn't have anyone to call a teacher. She never rejected that idea, nor was she too proud. It just never occurred to her to rely on others to make herself stronger. Sumo guy says, "You don't know what that samurai meant, right? As for me, I know. Let's play sumo. That's the only way I know how to explain it. You've become entangled." Maki asking what? Yourself, others, curses, basically people. But isn't sumo about grappling? Yes, in the ring, one person clashes with another in an intense back and forth. The wrestlers themselves, however, develop outside the ring. Pressing your opponent in the ring requires stepping outside the ring, even though you actually can't. At the moment of impact, everything that led up to entering the ring flows into the combatants. It's like smelling light or seeing sound. You sense everything about your opponent and yourself, and then the body before your eyes and even victory and defeat themselves become meaningless. In other words, the samurai was talking about freedom. So now you'll just have to experience it for yourself. So let's do sumo. And then Maki beats him in a bout and says, "I'm at my best." Basically what Maki just underwent was this mental weight being lifted off of her. She is no longer bound by the things that worried her before. The mental weights that were on her before and restricting her are now free. And we've seen this happen in the past when it comes to mental changes and people getting physically stronger. We saw when Megumi was fighting the first finger bearer. After he changed his mindset, he was actually able to open a domain for the first time. And then we saw when Hanami was fighting against Yuji and Todo. Once Hanami changed his mindset, he was actually able to have fun while fighting and therefore got stronger. There's just this thing within Jujutsu Kaisen where if you just change your mindset to what fits you best, you actually just get physically stronger. And that is what happened to Maki here. And this is why when Maki comes out of the domain, they say she's totally changed. What could have happened inside that domain in such a short time? It's like she suddenly grew. As Naoya and Maki begin to fight again, she says, "Everything around me would tell me how Naoya will move. Without glasses, I couldn't see, but others were able to see. I gained this body thanks to Mai, and now I can see curses without glasses. I was satisfied to be like everyone else. That person would have reached that height. That person would have thrown a katana without hesitation. that person would have been able to handle everything at that high speed. It isn't enough to be like everyone else. Something only I can see. Something only that person could see exist. That person she is talking about is Toji. And as Naoya begins to try to fight her again, she says, "The atmosphere around us may seem empty, but differences in temperature and air density create scattered surfaces. I just need to seize them." And we see her punch Naoya to the ground. And Naoya says, "I am a cursed spirit. Hit me without cursed energy all you want." And Naoya actually gets up to open the domain, and he catches Daido and the sumo guy Mio inside the domain. And he actually has them at his whim completely. But right as it seems like Naoya is about to win, a sword comes through Naoya's back. And this says, like Toji, Maki does not have any cursed energy. So barrier techniques treat her as a building. Naoya must use an actual structure as the barrier's exterior like Fushiguro did in Tokyo Colony No. 1. But unless she consents, he can't trap her inside the domain. The blade that Mai left was a replica of the cursed tool Split Soul Katana. It can bypass the toughness of many substances to cut the soul. However, exerting that power fully requires eyes that can observe even the souls of inorganic matter. The domain's guaranteed hit could not recognize Maki because she has no cursed energy. And then Naoya just explodes. And here the manga says, 12 years after his death, a demonic fighter equal to Toji Zenin was fully realized. Maki had now become fully like Toji. Before she had the mental burdens. She didn't have the physical capabilities as Toji did because of her mental burdens. But now that she is mentally free and she has this freedom, she can now fully exert the power that she has, and she is now equal to Toji. There's also moments in the recent chapters where Maki begins to fight against this Megami Sukuna, but it doesn't really matter that much because Sukuna is sort of nerfed inside Megami's body. And also, as soon as she decides to quote-unquote speed things up, they only get into one altercation where Sukuna just blocks all of her hits. He then uses a spider web on the ground, and as Maki is falling, he just punches her in the face. Yeah, she does eat it, and he says, "Haha, nice." He gives her props for being able to eat the punch. But right after this, she just gets frozen by Rame's Frost Calm. So we never actually got to see Maki go all out against Sukuna because the moment she did decide to speed up, there was only one altercation and she got frozen. But that is all that's really needed to sort of get the gauge for Maki. The fight from Naoya, the second fight against Naoya, and some things from the Sukuna fight. And with that being said, we can now get into Yuki's fighting style, her abilities, and why ultimately Yuki wins this match. The first fight we can get into when talking about Yuki's abilities is of course her fight with Kenjaku. And as Yuki comes out to fight Kenjaku, Kenjaku says she's a special grade sorcerer, but headquarters keeps a tight lid on intel about her curse technique, or so I thought. I couldn't get any information from the higher ups. So instead of going up close against Yuki, Kenjaku summons a special grade cursed spirit and says, "I think I'll keep you at a distance." And then Kenjaku says, "Let's see what you've got." And Yuki summons her Garuda. And after summoning it, she just kicks it towards the cursed spirit and it blows it completely up. And then she says, "Scared to get near an unknown technique? Then I'll fill you in. It's mass." And she runs up on Kenjaku and punches him so hard that she goes straight through his arms, breaking them. And Kenjaku says, "She sent me flying until a breach appeared in the circular definition of the empty barrier. Mass. It's a concept that targets a cursed technique. Mass so overwhelming it surpasses anything inside and out." And Yuki says, "Yes, that's my technique. I give myself virtual mass and call it Star Rage. And my technique turned the Shikigami Garuda into a cursed tool. Its Star Rages only target beside me." So basically her cursed technique allows her to apply mass to either herself or Garuda, as much mass as she wants, which is why Kenjaku says it is a concept that targets a cursed technique. Mass so overwhelming it surpasses anything inside out. And this is why she was able to go straight through his arms. Now he does use reverse curse technique to heal his arms, and he says, "I suspect the increased mass doesn't affect the sorcerer herself because her speed isn't decreasing. Since she defies concepts, I can't use a high-grade cursed spirit like in Shibuya. But can I take this beast down myself?" Now, of course, because Kenjaku sees how dangerous she is, even wondering if he can take her down, he just goes ahead and opens up his domain because he knows that he most likely has a better domain than her. Even Tengen says that Kenjaku is one of the few people in the world who can match him in barrier techniques, and of course, domains are barrier techniques. So Kenjaku just opens up the domain because in a physical fight, you sort of see how it would go. Yuki is very overwhelming in her fight style. After being hit with a sure hit from Kenjaku's domain, we see Yuki just lying on the ground. And Kenjaku tells her that a fight with her own domain may have not been so boring, that she shouldn't have relied on Tengen. But Yuki gets up anyways and tries to hit him with a sneak attack with her Shikigami. And as Garuda goes towards Kenjaku, she runs up on Kenjaku and tries to kick him, but Kenjaku is able to block all of the hits. And it's sort of sad that this rampage that Yuki is going on now happens while she is so weak. Her arm is mangled and she's bleeding from all over. If it was the Yuki from before getting hit with the sure hit inside of Kenjaku's domain, he most likely would have been tearing Kenjaku up right here, because physically she just is better than Kenjaku. She's super fast and her hits just weigh much more than Kenjaku's. Her hits, like Kenjaku said, overwhelm anything inside and out, so she would have literally been putting holes in Kenjaku if she was at full health like she was before. After Choso comes back into the fight and they try to overwhelm Kenjaku, Kenjaku just lays down Garuda and Choso with his gravity technique. And Yuki actually tries to run up on him and beat him down, and she says she's going to win. She tries to break down what's happened so far, and she says reverse curse technique and the domain wore away his curse energy, and fighting Big Brother tired him out physically. Gravity isn't as unyielding as I first thought. Given the effective range, I can narrowly escape even at close range. Attack now, you won't get a second chance. But sadly, Kenjaku just grabs her arm, uses a mini Uzumaki to her face, and then he uses another mini Uzumaki to her stomach, which puts a hole in her stomach. Now, like I said earlier, it is sad that she was so weakened by the time that she gets to fight Kenjaku again in this up-close battle, because like I said, if she was able to actually have her stamina and health, these hits would have been putting holes in Kenjaku the same way that she broke his arms off with one punch earlier. And it is important to keep in mind that the only reason she got to this state was because of the domain that was landed on her earlier. If this domain was never launched by Kenjaku, he definitely would be dealing with these same effects of getting beat down badly, and honestly, the fight probably would have been over. Yuki probably would have beat Kenjaku if he never opened the domain, which is probably why he opened the domain after assessing her abilities. You can tell that right after he saw what she was capable of, he wasted no time. He instantly just opened domain in order to get her in a very weakened state. And it did work, as he ends up winning the fight. As Yuki is lying on the ground and Kenjaku thinks that she's dead, he grabs Kenjaku's ankle and says, "Star Rage's alterations and mass don't affect me, but only up to a certain density." And Kenjaku says density, if there's no limit to the mass she can add, impossible, a black hole. Black holes possess extreme density and immense gravity. Neither matter nor even light can escape. In terms of density, imagine the Earth shrunk to a diameter of about 2 centimeters. You will gravity, so you should have seen this coming, right? Gravity, mass, time, they all deserve the utmost caution. And she creates a black hole that just explodes at the area they are fighting in. And the only reason Kenjaku lives is because he uses their curse technique reversal of his gravity technique that he has, so he was actually able to counteract the gravity from the black hole. He was able to live. It's a bit confusing, but after you read it, you sort of get an understanding for it. Basically, he just used anti-gravity on gravity and therefore lived. So the main takeaways from this fight is that Yuki was actually in the upper hand before domains were ever launched. She was able to punch Kenjaku so hard that his arms ripped completely off. He also seems faster than Kenjaku physically, as she was able to get up on him in such a short amount of time before he could really react, just putting his arms up instead of trying to get out of the way. And when he did put his arms up, like I said, she broke them completely off. The only reason Yuki got to such a weakened state is because of the domains that happened afterwards, after she got caught in Kenjaku's domain and hit with a sure hit. In a fight with Maki, there would be no domain opening. This Yuki that we first saw fight against Kenjaku pre-domain, that would be the Yuki fighting against Maki. Yuki would not be in that weakened state that we see the rest of the fight. So in this fight with Maki, just ignore everything that happened after Yuki got hit with Kenjaku's domain. That Yuki that we saw pre-domain, that powerful version of Yuki is the one that would be fighting against Maki because she has no domain. Yuki would not be getting hit with any sure hits, so she would be able to fight freely, move around fast, and punch Maki so hard with her mass technique she would be putting holes in Maki. And I saw a few comments on the community tab poll about who would win between the two. We were all sort of wondering if the sword that Maki has, if Yuki will be able to use reverse curse technique to heal from the damage that she takes. And it sort of is ambiguous as we don't know really if RCT can heal the soul. Mahito sort of hints at it earlier in the series. Remember back when Mahito transformed Junpei? Mahito actually says it's not like Sukuna can't just heal Junpei's soul. So Mahito does believe that with reverse curse technique, you can change the soul. So if we just go based off of that statement, then the hits that Yuki gets dealt from the sword won't be that much of a problem because she can use reverse curse technique and heal. But that is assuming that she actually takes like big blows from the sword anyways, as Yuki is extremely fast and the hits that she lands will be devastating. The hits that Yuki lands should put holes in Maki. If she hits Maki in the stomach, her hand should go straight through Maki. If she hits Maki in the arms, just like she hit Kenjaku in the arms, then Maki's arm should come completely off. And Maki doesn't have reverse curse technique to heal. We saw when she just got punched into the ground by Naoya, she said she needed 5 minutes to heal. You won't have 5 minutes to heal in a fight with Yuki. Yuki literally has a relentless fighting style. We saw it against Kenjaku even when she was weakened. Yuki barrels on hits, so where you are always in a defensive state, and this would actually be bad for Maki, is like I said earlier, Yuki has a curse technique that applies mass to herself or Garuda that overwhelms anything inside out according to Kenjaku. So if Yuki is hitting Maki in the arms, chest, shoulder, you get the point. She would be putting holes in these areas. She would be ripping Maki's limbs off with her curse technique. Plus, after finding out that Yuki lost to Kenjaku, Maki even says herself that she doesn't stand a chance. It's like she knows that since Yuki and the others lost to Kenjaku that she won't be able to do anything, which is why she admits inferiority to the situation, saying that because they lost, she won't be able to defeat them. And that is all I have for this video. Thank you for watching and making it to the end. If you enjoyed JJK content, then please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as I do post videos every couple of days on different topics you guys give me and a few I come up with on my own. Thank you for watching. See you next time.